Good evening. Welcome to the City of Sandwich Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Monday, April 21st, time being 7 p.m. The meeting is called to order. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Alderman Fritsch.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will Clerky please call the roll?
Alderman Arnett.
Here.
Alderwoman Erickson is absent. Alderman Fritsch.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson. Here. Alderman Kreinbrink.
Here.
Alderman Lilbrandt.
Here.
Alderman Robinson.
Here.
Alderman White-Cotton.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. We'll move on with the meeting. Under Mayor's report, I've asked Mike Colcott from Valley West Hospital to come and present on the status of our community hospital. I know he's brought some staff with him, so when Jeff's ready, I'll have Mike come up, and Tony, you make sure the microphone's on. I guess you can stand and they can sit if they'd like.
I like that. We might do some musical chairs and shuffling. So my name is Mike Colcott. I am the Vice President of Operations for both Kishin Valley West Hospital. I've been with Kishin Valley West longer than, some people have been on the face of the earth. Having grown up in DeKalb, it was one of my first jobs, and I've been there pretty much all my life. And so, and with me today are the people that really know what's going on, and that is Ashley Brown and Missy LaCour. And we're going to kind of share our presentation today. If you have any questions, please do jump in, and we'll get started, if that's all right with you. All right.
Tonight, we have technical issues.
Of course, the one time, inevitably. Sorry.
I have the boring stuff anyway, so I'll just start off. So between Northwestern, this is my overall Northwestern, kind of where we are in the world, and just a little bit about Northwestern, because, to me, it's sometimes overwhelming. We have almost 2,600 beds between the Academic Medical Center downtown and every place else. And you look at the Academic Medical Center, and, I worked for Northwestern for years before I really kind of knew what it was. And not only is it just, a close affiliation with the School of Medicine so that we can get medical students, kind of orient them to our facility, but also just treating the sickest of the sick. And they do a very, very good job, and we do a very, very good job down there. I can't take credit for it, but it is amazing some of the technology that they have and some of the very difficult patients that we treat. The other 10 hospitals, of which 2 we have in DeKalb County, are kind of more community hospitals. And so I think over the years, we've learned that a community hospital is different than an academic medical center. It has different needs, and be connecting with the community a lot on a different level than in downtown in a different way. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Some of the things that you see up there, there's kind of that Love Me slide where we have 9 out of 10 hospitals with magnet designation, which is an advanced designation to attract nurses. And so nurses kind of look at that and they say, well, it's a magnet hospital. They treat nurses right. They really do things right. It's a different standard of care and the way you treat your employees. 5-star Vizient and CMS ratings, that's the best you can get. Valley West is not rated as Vizient, but is rated as CMS or vice versa. And they're 5 stars as well. Our Net Promoter Score, 87 out of actually minus 100 to plus 100. So people are pretty happy with us. And we do have a large graduate medical school as well. So we try to have things kind of seamless. We like to try to treat people close to home. I was just talking to Don, and he was relating an experience of getting some care downtown, but getting some follow-up testing here in town. The only reason that we would ever transport somebody out of Valley West Hospital is we have the right resources and the best way to treat people, perhaps in another way. We never had a Kish say, hey, come up to see Kish when we can treat those people down at Valley West. The other side of the coin is we transfer people down to Valley West, especially for some of the specialized programs that we have among which is the swing bed program, which you're going to hear Ashley talk about in a moment. So that was the boring stuff. I'm going to give you Ashley Brown and to start talking about some of the services that we do.
Thank you, Mike. So as Mike said, I'm Ashley Brown. I am the inpatient manager. I'm actually homegrown, so I graduated from Sandwich High School. I won't say what year, but so I take a great passion, and I'm glad I was able to come back about 5 years ago to the Sandwich area and start managing the inpatient side. So pretty much anyone that stays overnight in the hospital, that falls under my purview. So like Mike said, our main value at Valley is to keep care close to home. Of course, we want to make sure it's, appropriate care. Neurosurgery, cardiac surgery, that's not something you want to do on occasion, maybe once a year. So obviously, we're going to send those to the more appropriate centers. But things that we can do, we really strive to do really, really well. So as Mike said, Homeward Healing is our swing bed program. Hopefully you guys have heard of that. We've been doing a lot of promotions, a lot of getting the word out. We did a study, and the majority of our patients are in the elderly, classification. So when elderly folks get sick, it's really hard for them to recuperate. And a lot of them end up having to go to rehab, whether it's physical rehab or long-term antibiotics or wound care. They have to stay away from home to get specialized services. The old model was, in order to do that, you would go to a nursing home. Obviously, we do not want to necessarily subject, our loved ones to automatically going to a nursing home. So we followed up with a unique program that's called the Swing Bed Program that only critical access hospitals can utilize. So we're the only critical access hospital within the NM system. So we are the only one that all of NM can feed into to allow for this rehab program. So we have great success. Most of our patients do go home with outpatient services, and we can kind of avoid that skilled nursing facility or nursing home kind of process. Obviously, if it's appropriate and that's the time that they need to go, we will do that, but try to skip that step if we don't have to go that route. Other skills that we have is we have advanced practice nurses. So we know, obviously, access to care has been a huge problem. Providers, there's not as many. Nurses, there's not as many. So we get creative with our solutions, and we're actually putting the right people in the right place. So we recently, over the last few years, have instituted pulmonary APNs and cardiac APNs. They are actually seeing patients in the hospital. Our cardiac APN also sees them outpatient as well. We have GI, so gastrointestinal, they follow in both places, and we also have wound that travels and follows them in both places as well. So it's wonderful that we don't have to send them downtown, as Dawn was saying, and we can do basic nursing care, basic physician care, basic procedures in our town. Keep everyone close, keep them with their families so that the scary things they're going through, they're not doing it alone. Then also, our third way to keep close to home is telehealth services. So we are the age of technology, so we definitely want to make sure that that is coming into our hospital and that we are utilizing it to its best ability. So through that, we use cardiology, nephrology, geriatrics, which is actually a brand new service I'll talk about, pulmonology, we have nursing support. So obviously, it's great that we can keep the patients close to home, but we are on kind of an island. So nurses are now able to reach out to their peers at the bigger medical centers and be able to get support if we have questions on something specialized. Telepsych and then telestroke. So hopefully none of you have had to use any of these, but if you had, I hope you had a great experience utilizing them. Next slide, please. So if you have been in the hospital recently, or if you had a loved one, you have probably been cared for by a hospitalist. We realize we speak this language and everyone knows what a hospitalist is in our realm, but most likely you guys probably do not. So the hospitalist model is really to focus care within the hospital, and it stays in the hospital. So you have somebody 24 hours keeping an eye on you, able to direct care, and then your primary provider is able to dedicate their time to their clinic hours. As we're already struggling to make appointments available and get into your doctor or into your APN, the hospitalist helps free up that hour, free up that time so that they're not working 20 hours to see clinic patients and hospital patients. Also, they're not getting piecemealed. The hospitalist, like I said, is in there for 24 hours, so they're seeing those lab results right away. They're able to order those medications and see how they affect the patient right away, so there's no delays in care. They are obviously the same credentials as any other internal medicine provider, so they are very skilled, but again, they're freeing up your primary care provider. So they do communicate with your primary care provider. I know that's sometimes a concern, that there's gaps in communication. Majority of people have the same electronic medical record, so we can communicate back and forth, make sure that your primary care provider is up to date in what happened at the hospital. And we can communicate if there is concerns, like we need more information, they will call them directly and get some input, so we know that your plan of care is gonna be seamless. All right, next slide. Last little bit I kind of, gave a preview to was our geriatric consults. So this is our newest service. As I had said, we did a community health needs assessment that happens every 3 years. And so that showed that 15% of our population in our service area is 65 years or older. The main age-related illnesses were impacting our community, specifically Alzheimer's disease, and that the major health-related concern was reduced access to care, which we talked about a little bit. So transportation concerns, major issue for this population. So we were able to institute telemedicine geriatric consults. So any patient that comes into our hospital that is experiencing, obviously, they have to be 65 or older, but if they have frequent admissions to the hospital, they might have a concern for a safe discharge plan. Are they ready for the nursing home? Do they need a caregiver 24 hours a day? Do they need outpatient services? Are they going to be in the hospital for a long amount of time because of their specific comorbidities? And do they take a lot of medications? Your loved ones, if you've ever looked in their medicine cabinet, they probably look like Walgreens. That's not really a safe practice. We want to make sure that we're not giving a pill that is to counteract the side effects of the other pill to counteract the side effects of the other pill. We know it starts to creep up on us, and then also make sure that the discharge disposition, that once the care is done, they're going to the appropriate place. So our gerontologists are actually from downtown. They call in and they do a video consult with our nurses and the family and the patient, and they're able to walk through all of these that are very specific to that population. And so we're seeing great results on that, trying to keep our patrons out of the hospital. We're probably the only people that don't want return customers when it comes to the inpatient setting. We would like to see you, care for you, and then hopefully see you at Walmart. So this is a great program. It's near and dear to my heart. And so I'm hoping to see that it continues to grow and that maybe, in the future we can have that as well close to home. But right now telemedicine is our key, and so we're going to keep utilizing it in any way we can. All right, I will relay over to Missy.
Good evening. My name is Missy. I am the Director Associate Chief Nurse at Valley West. I have oversight of the emergency department, inpatient units, and then our outpatient. So just wanted to go over some of the services that we offer. Surgical services is a robust department within Valley West. We have an orthopedic surgeon. We just added an additional podiatrist. Our urologist performs different surgeries, and we most recently were approved a capital piece of equipment, which is state-of-the-art, which is super exciting for us. That piece of equipment will hopefully, as Ashley said, we don't like repeat customers, but it will hopefully prevent patients having to come back for repeat procedures. We also do endoscopy and pain. If you want to go to the next slide. I want to give a high-level overview of our emergency department. So far this fiscal year, we have seen about 5,500 patients. We have 7 ED rooms. We do have 2 behavioral health rooms, which are patient safe. So a couple years ago, you may have read in an article, we did a lot of work in 2 of our bays for the behavioral health population to make sure when they come in to receive care, that those rooms are safe. So when you go into an emergency department, typically you'll see a wall full of supplies, suction canisters, different monitors, storage cabinets. And so these 2 bays actually have a pull-down, we call it a garage door, but a pull-down door that protects that equipment. From our emergency department visits, we had 459 admissions. And as Mike shared, our patient engagement, something that we measure. If you've been a patient, you've likely gotten a survey either in the email or via text message. Feedback is important to us to tell us what we're doing right, but also what opportunities do we have. And within the entire NM system, Valley West has the highest engagement score within the emergency department. So we definitely pride ourselves on that, making sure that we are providing compassionate care to our patients. Next slide. Hot off the press, last week we had the opportunity to be one of the 8 hospitals within the NM system to install a Narcan vending kiosk, which when you walk into the emergency department, it is right at the entrance. One of the several goals with this vending machine. So the first was to reduce the number of deaths related to opioid overdoses. And we really wanted to meet the community's health priority needs related to mental health and substance abuse. And also just to reduce that stigma of obtaining this medication. During Rural Health Day last year, we had handed out Narcan, and it was a very popular station within Rural Health Day, and it really just gives that opportunity to have that. My daughter is 17. She came to Rural Health Day, so I did send her to that table. You know, they talked to her about it. She carries it in her backpack. You never know, you know, when you're going to need it or where. And again, this is a gravity fed. You don't need to sign anything. You don't need to do anything to receive it. You just walk in, you pull the box out, and it will be continually refilled. It's available to our staff, patrons of the ED and hospital campus, and members of the community at no cost. Drug Take-Back Day will be this Saturday. And we also had, we participate in the WSPY Healthy Living segments. I don't know if you've ever tuned in the last Tuesday of the month, but this month will be on opioid overdose, Drug Take-Back Day, and then our Narcan vending machine. Next slide. The last thing I wanted to go over was our outpatient infusion center. So we have a relatively new within the last year. We were doing some infusions and day surgery, but this is now a standalone department where we do a variety of treatments. So antibiotic therapy, blood transfusions, accessing ports, hydration, migraine, and then supportive oncology services. So that's a great resource that if someone needs this, they don't have to travel far from home, that they can come right into Valley West and have this done. I think that is my next slide. Thank you.
Just wanted to also go over some of the equipment upgrades that we've done and some of the upgrades to the facility. Northwestern Medicine invests in our hospitals. We want to make sure that people are getting care in an environment that is actually, you know, fairly calming. We've noticed a hospital. And so things like a new CT scan and diagnostic imaging has taken our capabilities really through the roof. We can do, if you've not had a calcium score for your heart for $60, you can get a complete actual CT that will diagnose if you're at higher risk for cardiac disease. It's, you know, probably a decent investment that I know I'm still trying to get my wife to do, but that will come in time, I think. We can scan coronary blockages better than we have ever had, as well as lung screenings for those heavy smoke with a history of heavy smoking. We'll actually get paid by insurance and really can have an early diagnosis of anything that might be more get more serious in the future. As well as neural capabilities. Got a new fluoroscopy room and machine, and if you probably you may be familiar with fluoroscopy or maybe not, it's basically a moving picture x-ray. So a lot of times with swallow studies, making sure that people are swallowing correctly, as well as just to kind of film your body in motion. And then there's a new DEXA room and machine, which is bone density testing as well. Next slide, please. Oh, you beat me. And then, even though the appearance may not seem like, you know, headline news, it is, because if you picture that hospital of the 1960s or 70s, I mean, it's like the, light green walls. It does not really give you a great feeling when you get inside. And so we really have been at work, especially over the last year or 18 months, to be able to update the interior of Valley West. I think that every patient-facing wall and floor has been redone to be able to have, just a little bit better experience. We've also, to me, this is exciting. It might not be exciting to everybody, but, when we don't have good heat or humidity at Valley West Hospital, bad things happen. There's certain instruments that if you're not in that range, they don't work or they are spoiled and we can't perform our services. So I'm thrilled that we're getting a third chiller to be able to have that temperature and humidity control the way that we need to keep it. Enhanced safety and security, such a safe community, but we always, as a hospital, we have a lot of things that people like to abscond, and so we've really had a lot of badge readers that protect, that limit entrance to different parts of the hospital. People love their badges and they hate their badges, especially when they leave them at home. We have to call our friends to let us in the hospital, so, or at least in different parts of the hospital. And then just other things that, believe it or not, LED lighting makes a lot of difference. It makes it easier for us to see what we're doing and makes it a little bit easier for people to see when they come in the hospital. Next slide, please. And then just generally, I was looking through, the actual dollars that were invested, and it's substantial. And this is the type of investment that Northwestern Medicine continues to make. And this is just capital equipment. Other than that, we have smaller equipment that doesn't hit this list necessarily. So it's really just a reinvestment in this community and in what we're doing to make sure that we can keep that Net Promoter Score high. And I'm going to just brag a little bit as well, because our ORs, I think, are at 100 Net Promoter Score, score of -100 plus 100. Our PT is the highest in the system, and our outpatient services are the highest in the system. What our staff is able to do at Valley West is really amazing, and it's important to us that Valley West remains a vital part of this community. Valley West is important to Northwestern Medicine. We've got programs down here that are nowhere else, like the Homeward Healing Program. And so, to me, Valley West is, a very viable and going to be part of this community for many, many years to come. And so I hope that, if there's ever a rumor mill that we're shutting down, it would be just that, as a rumor. I think the next is the community outreach. When we were at Kish, we had a lot of people to go into community outreach. Northwestern Medicine still does community outreach in a little bit of a different way. You've heard Missy talk about WSPY and Rural Health Day, and we also attend some of the sandwich events that are a lot of fun. Next slide, please. Uh-oh, it's hard to see. All right. Well, if this were easier to see, what we try to do is we really reinvest in some of the local. Oh, thank you. Some of the local service organizations that may benefit from additional resources or additional money. And so Equine Dreams, we give grants to them, Fox Valley Adult Services, Community Gardens, as well as VAC. And that's kind of the other way that we try to give back to the community. Sometimes we don't have the bodies to do that. And also, these guys are doing it better than we can. So wouldn't it make sense to help them do their job better? All right, I think that's just about it. I think probably the very last thing that I might throw out there is, one of our challenges is capacity. It's a good problem to have, but it's still, an issue that we have, that's really top of our radar, especially with our physicians. We have 6 providers. We're running head-to-head with Endeavor. Not that we're competitive, but yes, we are. We have the same amount of providers. We've been trying to recruit another physician for about a year. We find that, for Kishwaukee and Valley West, really takes that type of person that loves this type of lifestyle. I like it, but it is harder to recruit sometimes to this area. So what we have is one open position for a physician, as well as in the future we're looking to add 3 physicians and then one of those mid-levels that really helps extend physicians so that we can see more people. Dr. Monet just came back from her maternity leave, so I think that probably was a little bit of a pinch in our system as well. So to me, as I talk to people around the community, more people would like to avail themselves of our services, and so that's what we're really trying to be able to open up. So, so yeah, please, any questions?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mike, and your staff for coming. I know you always have other things to do, but taking the time and presenting to us is always important to us to see what's going on. I think we've been fortunate, we've had a hospital in this community forever, and I think that's important that we keep that relationship going, so. Council, questions or comments?
Anyone from the audience?
Do you guys ever intend to reinstitute obstetrical services? for the
Probably not.
community?
It's super complicated. You would not think that OB would be
I'm a nurse
complicated?
practitioner, I understand. I'm like,
Okay,
I get it.
so you
Sort of like,
understand.
You know, if it's kind of a desert out here, like where the patients go, and there is a big indigent population in our area.
We do catch a lot at Kishwaukee as well. But I was just reading an article this morning. Over the last, I think, 5 years, 100 OB programs were discontinued in smaller hospitals. You have to have anesthesiology on staff
Right.
24 hours a day or on call 24 hours a day, as well as an OB, and a bunch of different specialized practitioners. And for smaller hospitals, all of a sudden, they're in a position where they can't do it well anymore because they can't necessarily have anesthesia around all the time. And because their volume is so low, it's kind of like, you know, a cardiac surgeon that does cardiac surgery once a week. You want to go to that person or one that can do it, you know, 4 times a day, you know? So we would love to be able to provide those services to the community. I don't think we could do it well.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm
other,
grateful for it being here. It has saved a lot of people that I know, especially for trauma unit and transport. Very quick on the money with that. I do wish the birthing center was still here because when it first got put in, it's immaculate, it was beautiful. And we had more babies born here, but you had some really good ER doctors.
Yeah.
I hope they're still there.
They are. Yeah.
Oh, thank God. I haven't had to go for a very long time. But
That is good. I love to hear that.
Yeah, they're great.
One of the things with our emergency department is, like Mike spoke to, if we don't have the service at Valley West, we know where to get you, where to get you to that next level. Being part of a critical access hospital, we have some quality metrics that measure how well are we transferring patients, what information are we including, and we've been 100%, which includes 8 different measures, which is, that speaks volumes that, we're doing it safely. We're making sure that the communication is getting to that next level of care so they can appropriately care for you.
Well, I know I had a family member admitted this weekend, and from the time they walked in the door till the time they were transferred to the hospital they needed to be at was, well, the ambulance being there to transport her was less than 45 minutes. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
okay,
you.
other questions for our Valley West staff? Thank you very much, I appreciate your time. Mike, I'll
Thank
follow
you.
up with you. I think we have a couple other questions we have for you from the city side, but has to do with a lot across the street, but we'll catch up later.
Gotcha.
All right,
All right, please red shot anytime. Take care. Have a good evening.
thank you. All right, Attorney Gottschalk report for legal report.
Just a couple things. I have tried to have contact with the attorney for the GT building. I have not had any response. I believe we have a status date coming up in the next couple weeks, so my intention will be to file a motion. We were trying to get it worked out, but it doesn't appear that they were supposed to have the roof redone or at least repaired the first week of April, and to date, it does not appear that that has taken place, so I am going to do something with regard to that. And then I think that's all I have right now. There's a couple things in the agenda, both of the agendas, that I will comment on though individually.
Okay, thank you. Clerk EE,
No report this evening.
City Administrator Penman.
Good evening. Just wanted to mention a couple quick things. Kurt is not here tonight, so I'll go ahead and mention it. The contract for Main Street was awarded to Fisher Excavating out of Freeport. Total project cost is $4.4 million $466,098.73. That is below the engineer's estimate by about $800,000. We're still waiting for a little bit of detail on that, but that is moving forward. We're hoping to have a public meeting in the next several weeks so we can get that project up and running. I provided for the council, we had Angie run the interest for this past year, for the past 12 months, as to what we earned on our checking account, what we earned on Illinois funds. You can see it was about just under $30,000 on interest in the checking account, but Illinois funds was about $471,000. So that was kind of our road program the last couple of years. So unfortunately, with having to spend down some of our fund balance going forward, that may cut into that, but it is certainly something that has been beneficial for us. We'll be looking at the budget tonight. It includes just the changes from our last committee of the whole budget meeting that were suggested, some things that were held back or frozen or reserved, if you will. So those are in there, but you each have a copy of that. What we'll do is once we end the year, we'll update our numbers. We'll put the budget back out with the end of the year numbers so we know exactly where we're starting the year, and we'll get you a new copy at that point in time. So let's see, I will be out of the office next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's that time of year to run and pick up children from college, so I will be out of the office during that time. Friday, I've got to walk through at the wastewater treatment plant. We're still trying to work on some of the issues with the diffusers and the oxidation. No, I can't remember what it is, but they're going to show me. Pardon me?
Digesters? The
digesters, yes. And so we're still working on that, but that's going to happen. And then we're hoping late this week, early next, work will begin on 724 North Main Street. We got a notice to proceed today, so we should be moving forward on that. Probably going to start on the garage and what's in the driveway first. They are still waiting on some of the utilities, so they're safe on one side. But that's all I've got for now.
Okay, questions for Jeff? Okay, Director report. Director Eberly, EMA.
So the first item I want to mention is on Sunday, we supported Harvest Chapel with their Easter services. The second item I want to mention is that we're excited to announce that we're now partnering with the U.S. Volunteers Joint Service Command, U.S. Army Volunteer Reserve. So with this partnership, we're looking to leverage the skills and experience of the VRC team to strengthen our emergency preparedness capabilities through activities such as trainings, drills, and exercises. Our intention is, with this pairing, is to build our critical response capabilities within the community as well as across our neighboring municipalities, and really fostering that whole community approach for safety and resiliency. I'd like to introduce Major Dean Agiris, Commander, to share a few words about him and his team.
Thank you very much. So, as Tony mentioned, I am Major Dean Argyris, commander of the 51st Brigade Coordination Team, U.S. Volunteers. Some of you guys, if you guys are history buffs, you may have been familiar with the U.S. Volunteers. Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders are a famous example of that. A lot of times these volunteer organizations ebb and flow, right? We do fall under, we are a non-for-profit structure, but we do have a relationship with the TAG. We drill out of General Jones Armory. Our mission is twofold. One, we provide military funeral honors. We augment the regulars and the reserves in that capacity. We are a Department of Defense AP3 approved provider of that. We also do emergency response, so CERT capabilities, right? So a little bit about our background. Most recent deployment was Hurricane Helene. We did points of distribution down there. We've responded to multiple EF3 tornadoes, mostly in Danville and Sullivan, Indiana. Points of distribution, damage assessment down there, as well as we've also assisted a lot of local law enforcement in traffic control operations for large events. Our biggest one is actually in Indiana, the Marshall County Blueberry Festival, where you have about 500 to 1 million people passing through on a weekend, and we control the traffic out there with the help of the county sheriffs. So that's basically what we do. A lot of times, let me backtrack here. So we are part-time in that we drill once a month. When we are asked to deploy by emergency management agencies like Sandwich, we will then go ahead for however long we are needed. We are trained by FEMA. We go through the Emergency Management Institute. This badge on my chest is what's called the Emergency Management Specialist Badge. It signifies that I've completed X number of courses through FEMA, as well as an 8-hour practicum with an emergency management agency to be integrated into an ICS NIMS system. So we would fall under the command of civilians in that ICS system. That's basically what we do. We have chaplain here. So just so you guys know, we are a composite. So a lot of us are prior service. We do have some people who have never served. We believe that the volunteer heart is probably one of the greatest resources that our country has, right? So Private Wooten over here, he always had a desire to serve, but you know, he folded into us. Chaplain actually went through the National Guard. You were down in Louisiana, right, as a chaplain?
Yes, but I have been all branches of the Army of the United States, active duty, enlisted time, and then reserves, where I trained as a chaplain candidate and was commissioned, and then National Guard and Indiana Guard Reserve.
Okay.
And I'm no hero, but I've been everywhere.
Yeah. So we have a wealth of experience that we draw on. Our training NCO and our OIC in charge training, they actually do search and rescue. One was with Lake County Sheriff's Department in Indiana doing helo searches, water. They're both actually water rescuers as well. So we have a wealth of experience in both the armed forces as well as civilian capacities to train these guys up and make sure that they are prepared. So that way when we are called on, we know exactly what we're going to do to help out the civilian populations. So thank you for that.
Okay, questions?
Just a thank you for what you do.
Yeah, I'm honored you guys came to visit us. Thank you, and thanks,
Well,
Tony.
we're honored to be here. It's our pleasure to sit here and figure out how we can better serve Sandwich and do mutual aid.
I do want to thank Don Schroeder, who's on our team, as well as Commander Jarris's team. So he helped really facilitate this, and really Major and I are looking to how do we work together as a group to benefit the community. So each of our teams are always looking for volunteers for learning new skills, giving back to the community. So anyone interested, talk to us after the meeting, go online to the SEMA website. I can put out links to the VRC's website as well, but looking for that give back, learning new skills, and that whole community prep.
Sure. And I'll just add, so, actually our chaplain left one of our brochures over there, which actually is a QR code that can take you to the website. If you are prior service, make sure you are submitting your DD-214 so that we can verify that and bring you in at your appropriate rank.
Okay, well, I look forward to how this develops, and I think there's some great opportunities for us both.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate you taking time to meet with us. Thank you. Tony, any other follow-up from you? Okay. Chief Stenny?
Okay, just want to go over some things in the last 2 weeks. Some of the events, we attended the Senior Health Fair. There were 2 Explorer meetings. We also participated in beanbag baseball with the seniors, chair volleyball with the seniors. We also served the seniors Easter breakfast, attended a lunch and learn, went to the Easter egg hunt with the Park District, and we also assisted EMA with the harvest traffic control this past Sunday. I just want to remind, April is still distracted driving campaign, so we're still out there working on that. We did open our lateral application process, looking for laterals. It is open until May the 4th. We are competing with many other departments, as it seems that every municipality has opened up their lateral process in the last couple of weeks. I want to thank Public Works for cleaning up the east side of the building. They got rid of all that mulch, that area that was kind of just there. They tore it up, put down some fresh dirt, and put down some grass seed for there, so that area will look better in the next couple of weeks. Also, the replacement of the light bulbs or the lighting in the police department, the older part of the building has begun to be replaced. Replacement started today. I think they're anticipating to be done tomorrow, maybe Wednesday at the latest. We received our reimbursement from the state for Officer Lundstein's Academy, so we are made whole on that. I want to just read a couple accommodations for the past couple weeks here. First one's for Officer Hagelin. Dear Sandwich Police Department, I'm writing to express my sincere gratitude for the opportunity to participate in a recent ride-along with your department. The experience was both enlightening and inspiring, offering me a firsthand look at the level of dedication and professionalism that defines your team. During the ride-along, I was particularly impressed by your approach to handling different situations with traffic stops and calls. This experience not only broadened my understanding of the complexity of law enforcement and public safety, but also reinforced my commitment to pursuing a career in this field. I understand the value of your time and appreciate the effort you made to provide clear explanations and answer my questions throughout the day. Your insights have significantly contributed to my professional development, and I am confident that the knowledge gained will be invaluable as I continue my studies and career exploration. Thank you once again for your mentorship and sharing your expertise. I look forward to any future opportunities to learn from your team and to contribute meaningful to your community. Sincerely, Andrea Mendoza. The other one I want to share is for Sergeant Whitecotton and Officer Rominski. On April 13th, they were dispatched to a reckless driver that was heading eastbound on Church Street from Salmonock. The dispatch center received information on the plate, which listed the vehicle as being stolen out of West Chicago. Both officers were able to find the vehicle at Church and Terra, and they conducted a traffic stop on the vehicle. The driver was taken into custody without incident. West Chicago arranged for the tow company to come and retrieve the vehicle from the scene. West Chicago also sent an officer to our police department to transport the individual back to their town, and then we actually charged the individual with driving while their license was suspended during that time, but that steal was actually very fresh. It was less than a couple hours old, so really good job by the two of them. And the last award, or last accommodation I want to just mention is today, we actually received the award from Lexipol. Lexipol is the organization that manages our department policies and procedure. We actually received the gold standard from them, which is presented to us for excellence in law enforcement and police management. That is the first time the police department has received the gold standard since we've become a member of Lexipol. So great job by the officers on that. I gave you guys the monthly report, and I can go too in depth to that. Just want to highlight a couple things that we did spend a great amount of time in training last month, listed on there. All of our officers, again, that we're qualified in our rifles, those that are authorized to carry them, our TASER 10s, and our regular firearms too. And then the other, just things there too, just other information, our 7 FOIA requests we had during the month, and just want to highlight that we had 3 patrol officers that were doing background investigations on police applicants last month too. And then Sergeant Meisner had 1 K-9 deployment on that. Overall, if you guys have any questions when you look at that, feel free to contact me. I'm not going to go too in depth in that, but just looking at the amount of activity that was done for the month, officers are still doing a really great job considering that we are operating without a full staff. Just one quick little thing on that too. So for the month of March, 82% of our call volume was officer initiated, and then for the year right now, we are sitting at 84% of our call volume is officer initiated. So still being very proactive out there in our day-to-day stuff. Then a reminder, we still have our community dashboard that's out there along with our website. And then I'd just like to thank Alderwoman Johnson, Alderman Fritsch, Little Brant, and Whitecotton for their service to the community and the support of the police department that it had over the last several years. And lastly, as I always close, I just want to thank the officers for the work that they do day in and day out.
Thank you, Chief. That is a great report. Questions from council?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chief. All right, moving on to council reports. Alderman Arnett.
I just want to reiterate what Chief had to say is to the 4 people we have leaving council, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve with you. Thank you for all the time and effort you put into everything you do here. And for everybody that's going to take these seats next, buckle up because there's a lot to it.
Alderman Fritsch.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes, well, obviously, thank you all very much. It's been an honor to serve. It's not easy, but it's rewarding, and it has its moments. For future council, I do want to remind you a couple of things that have been on my mind and heart for what I hope you guys communicate about in the future. One would be our code enforcement officer. I hope you demand a little more transparency with that. I haven't seen a report since we had a new code enforcement officer. I'd kind of like to know what's going on more with that. And but everybody here has been pretty awesome. We do have a great little town. Obviously, one of the big, hard issues we've had was about a silly issue with gift cards for during Christmas time. And to settle something, I just want everyone to know, like, part of my biggest issue is that the average family in this town earns about $75,000 a year. And so knowing that, we can't get grants because we make too much, and then we have just so many issues. So when you're handing out gift cards to people who make way more than that, I just want you all to think about it, follow our mayor's directive if he wants to do a party, and, you know, figure out better ways to do things in that regard. But I do want to thank our mayor. You've been pretty awesome and very helpful to me, so thank you very much.
I'll get a shirt that says pretty awesome.
Well, it's been a
Thank you.
long road, and I'm glad we finally got everything up on YouTube so that everybody can see what's really going on here instead of hearsay. So
All right, thank you.
that's all. Thank you.
Alderman Cranbrink.
I too want to just thank everybody for their participation. I mean, we've had a lot of good commentary over the past 6 years, you know, that I've been on, and we've had a lot of changes. We've had a lot of progressive changes in the past 5 years, you know, with advancements in our sewer system, our water system, our roads, our sidewalks. So I think it took the 8 of us to come together and formulate a game plan with the mayor's direction and the city administrator and the department heads, and just come together. And I just want to thank everybody for their participation with that.
Thank you. Alderman Littlebrandt.
Yeah, just briefly, it's been a privilege, and I appreciate all of you. I know there have been times when we butted heads, but I think everybody had the right idea in mind. We don't always agree on every little thing, but I think our hearts were all in the right places, so I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Alderman Robinson.
I'd like to have an executive session for personnel at the end of this meeting.
Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, Alderman Whitecotton.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Just a reminder for those of you who might be in the audience that got elected, we will send you a letter notifying you of an orientation you can participate in before the next meeting in May. Council will have their committee of the whole meeting as we get through the regular meeting. We will do swearing in, we'll do vacating of seats. We do have recognition of all of our outgoing council members. And so please make sure at the next meeting, you're not done yet. All right, old business. We had some previous discussion about possible changes to the Sandwich Municipal Code, Section 98-145, Airport Area Development. Do you want that or Don, or?
Yeah,
just-
well, in speaking
update?
today, we did get some additional information. I think we'd like to look at it a little more closely rather than just look to vote on it tonight. I think there is some other things to consider beyond just taking it out of our code. We believe it's been there since 1979 for a reason, to try to make sure that we could protect the runway at the airport and the operation that's there. In the past, that was a commercial airstrip, and now it's considered what is a restricted airstrip, meaning that you have to have permission to actually land there. You can't just radio in. It's not like there's somebody there. I don't know a lot about it, but there's a significant difference, and also how much space you need on each side. So there are some other things that we can designate around it. One of the things that came up that was interesting to me is that, like, you can designate it like 2,500 feet around it, that maybe you wouldn't put windmills up there or something like that. Something that if a plane had lost engine power, you know, you don't want them crashing into something that they don't have to crash into. So I think that it would be worthwhile to look at this a little more closely and see what we can set out.
Yeah, I think one of our concerns, we want to see what the county has as well, a little more discussion with them before we vote, because we're adjacent to them, so. Okay, so we'll set that to the side, unless there's other comments from council.
I just want to say I have to agree with Jeff, because I go back to the very last sentence that I brought up last time, where it states, the other interesting note is the city can allow someone to build on that site, but if too high, the state will shut the runway down. I want to see, before we pass anything, city have an ordinance in place to where there's no possible way for this runway to be shut down. And that's the only way I would discuss or agree with it.
All right, other comments? All right, item B, this is discussion of proposed ordinance amending Chapter 38, Historical Preservation of the City of the Sandwich Municipal Code. So there was a nice article out from the city of Bloomington, and it had to do with their historical commission and how they've been utilized to review 3 downtown buildings, 2 of which will be demolished. So maybe this will help give you a little better understanding, those in the audience, about what a historical commission does for a community. If we can get to play,
If we can get it.
get past the ad.
I believe that's the ad. It says I only have 8 seconds left. Oh, now I'm stuck at 6. Okay, after that uncomfortable silence. All right. I'm thinking we may need some
Got your
AV
alarm
club
on.
people here. Okay, it doesn't look like that's working like it should. I can send it to everybody. I don't hear any sound.
So essentially what it is they have a historical commission. They asked them to review some downtown buildings to determine their historical significance. They also looked at the history of the building, its use in the community, and its future use in the community. The ultimate, I think, outcome is they agreed to demolish 2 buildings, change the facade of one, and a 4th building they didn't want to discuss at all. So it does talk about the purpose of the commission and their role in determining as an independent body to the city, and then making a recommendation on what to do with some of those historical buildings. It shows a couple of those that they decided to demolish. The interesting thing is they were going to make them parking lots for the time being until they could find a new developer of those properties. But it did talk about that without the commission hadn't been effective in its job because they should have made sure these buildings were maintained properly and reported back to their city to make sure that they didn't fall in disrepair, which we've kind of been in that situation ourselves. So it is a good article. We'll get it out to you. It may give you a little more perspective of another community's role in the process. So. Questions on the ordinance?
I have a question concerning individual homes. When I read through there, it sounds like anybody can nominate. I could put Mayor Lasom's house and do
I
all
would
the
not do
paperwork.
that, for the record.
And I could do all the paperwork and get it approved. But the homeowner, can they say no?
Well-
I don't see it in there.
There's a couple processes of the whole thing. So first of all, they have to have hearings and transparency of properties that they're looking at, or districts, or historical markers, or points of interest. So there's a whole process you have to go through. You can request that. My understanding is the commission will review that and determine its validity and decide if something is historical or should be designated as a landmark or something of significance. So.
Well, I understand that, but if a house fits all those criteria and the owner says, no, I don't want to be in it, can they still be forced into it?
I mean, I guess I didn't really look at that specifically. I'd have to double check here. I mean, yes, you're right. Technically, anyone could file the application, but then it would have to go to a hearing, at which time I would presume that the homeowner would appear and advise as to their position. I think that could probably be added in there, but I think, part of what my understanding this commission is to do is if you do have a, good, solid structure, historical house, you don't want Walmart to come in and buy it and demolish it just because. So if Walmart was the owner, we would probably want the community to be able to file to protect. And that is kind of what has been happening in the world, right? People are identifying historical properties and they're trying to get them protected. So we can definitely maybe alter that. But I think the main thing is if something is in good condition, we don't want someone to be able to demolish it necessarily just because they don't want it.
Okay, it's just a concern. The other concern was on the historic districts, it goes by a vote, and a leaseholder of a 5-year lease, their vote can override the owner, or is that the way I understand it?
Do you know what you're
What part of
talking
the-
about, the,
A historic district.
okay.
It's under 38-32, number 2 is what you're talking about, right? That the petition shall
I don't have the
contain-
number in front of me yet.
All right,
Just
contain the
reading this
names of
afternoon.
no less
So-
than 51% of property owners.
I mean, yes. I know that, I think this was taken from, I don't remember where the commission, so the commission got a lot of the ideas from this. I modified it a little bit to make it, and I should say, it is the commission, but I think we generally call it the committee, Historic Preservation Committee. But I think the idea is that people that have 20-year leases, and we can increase that number too if there's changes that you guys want, but if it's someone that's going to be residing or occupying the property for a significant period of time, and they have certain rights in a lease, that they would be able to exercise those rights in their lease in this situation.
yeah,
It
just
wouldn't
so-
override, but they would also have to,
It allows them to put their name on a petition
Right.
for it to go forward to be considered.
Well, that's the only concerns I had with it. Thank you.
it's just allowing it to be part of the application process, not necessarily require or give them a greater interest than the property owner.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus that I think we should look at about this preservation ordinance is one about the preservation of historical and architectural characteristics of the city. Also promoting civic pride in our landmarks and our historic districts, stabilizing and improving our economy, providing a benefit that attracts people to our city for buyers, visitors, shoppers, supporters of business, commerce, industry, and providing an economic benefit to the city, and fostering that preservation and restoring structures in our community. So one last part is the goal was to prevent urban blight. So I think that's the overall focus. I don't think it's supposed to be intrusive in any way. You know, one of the things that this group has came up with, they've been meeting for several years now, is they have a walking list of all significant buildings in our community. And it gives you a history lesson about the building, and so that's like one of 3 lists that they have. So it's more than just the preservation. They also have a whole historical program that they worked on for several years. So that walking list is done. I believe it's being printed. And the intent is to put it in businesses downtown that when people visit, and if they want to take a walking tour, they can. So they've been working on a lot of other projects just beyond simple structures, so. Okay, other questions on the ordinance?
Just briefly, I was just gonna say, I can obviously see the benefits to it, but I agree with Bill in the sense that I can picture also an elderly person's home is pointed at, and they're, of course, notified, but maybe they don't have the ability to come to a meeting. Those things concern me. I don't know enough about this to be dangerous, and I'll say that right out front, but that was what I saw when I read it. It felt like someone could be a homeowner and get twisted without intent, but it could happen.
Yeah, I think one of their goals is to identify historical structures and then put placards or markers out that tell the history of that particular home. Certainly that would require, you know, the consent of the homeowner.
Sure, and I would think that most people would be proud to have something like that, but it's the stuff beyond that that I think might be a concern.
Not only that, but like I pointed out at last council, this ordinance is 13 pages long. A lot of elderly people aren't going to have the ability to sit, read, understand this. Their property gets designated as a historic land site. The roof can't change, the windows can't change, doors can't change, trim in your house can't change. There's so many things elderly people in town might not be able to do to their homes to keep it in that condition it's in. They might be able to afford to put vinyl siding on it to protect their home. Having somebody nominate your home and just say, it's going to be this, an opt-out clause has got to be put in here.
Well, that's what the certificate of economic hardship is for. So,
It talks about that, and you can also be not approved for it.
and then they would appeal it to the full council. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think that there is a mechanism in there that covers those things, that we would, and I'm not gonna, it's obviously not necessarily in here, but I think that if it were determined by the commission that, you know, we wanted, this piece of property is that important, and by the council, you know, they can get them in touch with the appropriate people to get grants or whatever to allow those. So, I mean, they have the ability to seek the certificate of economic hardship to make changes that maybe don't align with the designation. And the things that are being done here, right, they have to come get a they'd have to come get a permit. And so hopefully then our building official would be able to direct them and say, oh, you know, there's also this ordinance that you need to take into account. But they would also be made aware if their property was.
Would you agree, Adam, that there's more to this ordinance than just about private property?
There's a ton in it, but
I mean, that seems to be your focus, but it goes beyond that, right? I'll give you an example.
But
So,
at a certain point, if we don't focus for our constituents, that's what we're here for.
well, this is all about the constituents, but this also addresses your downtown, your historic community. So for example, Knox Clock. That'd be a good example when they would have approached the city, a committee like this would have taken this on to find an appropriate place. They would have brought it to the city and gave some recommendations, and then the city could have went forward. It's just more than private property. I don't think the intent of this is to be punitive of people's property. It's to set up a process, and most of these pages are to provide structure for them about how to organize, how to operate, the system to go through, because it's in our code book, but it doesn't tell them how to operate or what to do. This sets their authority and their limitations on authority.
I understand that completely, but what I'm pointing out is I'll point us out as the city. We have an opera house right next door. It's $3 million to make it stay the way it needs to be. Us as a city can't even afford to fix that right now, but we're asking homeowners to keep their home historical in the presence that they're stated right now.
I mean,
If
we're
the
not until
before-
someone asks for them to be designated
Right, I
as
understand that, but I'm saying
historical.
if they are designated as historical at that point, the onus is on them to pay the bill. A lot of people in town might not be able to pay that bill. That's why I'm saying opt-out clause.
That's the certificate of economic hardship is what they
Right,
would
but I'm
apply
saying an
for.
opt-out clause in here would probably help.
But I guess then how would we be able to fairly apply that to the
If a
people
homeowner-
and then the Walmarts
If a
of the
homeowner does
world?
not want their property on there, they say, I don't want my property on there.
Okay, so then we won't be able to stop the Walmarts either. I mean, that's the thing. And that's, I think, what the intention
I will
of
never
this
force a homeowner
isn't.
into this.
What?
I will never force a homeowner into this.
But you're
It
not
doesn't force the
forcing them.
homeowner. It gives them an opt-in process and a public hearing, and the whole process determines something in this mechanism.
And if you see that the application, so where it said that 51%, so if it's one person, it would have to be that person has to be part of it. So if it's a single homeowner.
So just saying again, I would like to see, we have a lot of elderly people and a lot of old homes here in town that quite possibly could qualify for this.
So it's not elderly, you keep focusing on that, we have a lot of younger
I'm
people.
focusing on it because they're the ones a little more financially burdened at this point in their life.
I don't think this thing financially burdens them unless it goes down that particular path. Have you been to any of the historical meetings that we've had?
I've not been to a historical meeting, but I've driven around this town, I've seen the trim on the windows, and I've seen, there's a lot of homes in this town that have got a lot of expensive
If you come
pieces
to the
them.
historical commissions meetings that exist, that's not what they discuss. They discuss things about history, research, preservation, helping people identify information, designating, like I said, the walking list of what's significant about the properties in our community and our downtown. That's what they work on. Not the things I think that you're focusing on. That is not their intent. Certainly it could be, but that's not their intent. And the council approves all the people on the commission.
I don't think they're being ill-intended at all. I'm just pointing out the fact that there's a lot of old homes in this town that would be very expensive to keep up under what we have here.
I think most of the people that have historic homes already keep them up in our community.
But again,
That's the reason they own a historic home.
no, if we pass this ordinance, that doesn't automatically designate any home, any property at all as historic. Someone is going to have to file the application and pay the fee. So, I mean, I think it'd be strange for someone to go all that way without consent from the owner. But if there's something specific someone would, I don't know, I don't think an opt-out clause specifically would be beneficial because you can't apply that uniformly without discriminating. And so if there's other language or other positions that you would like, we could try to consider those, but the intent is to protect the historical features if someone takes that step. It's not just automatic.
Okay, other comments? All right, well, you have a chance to vote on if you'd like tonight when it comes up under the regular meeting. Discussion of license and fees. Is that you, Jeff?
Good evening. I did not really receive any feedback on the licensing and fees. We did this last March, was the last time we updated it. You know, if it's something that we want to take a look at, that's great. If we want to put it off till next March, we can do that too. Ideally, it makes sense to change the fees with the fiscal year, or, you know, we could even look at doing it at different times. So did anyone have any comments or anything that they wanted to discuss at this point in time?
I don't think right now, March, unless you're talking about a year from now.
That's what I mean, yes.
Not prepared to come up, I don't have any ideas right now as far as cost, but I think it's something we could probably do a little bit later this year, summertime or whatever, for next year. But I think it would make sense if we were gonna be changing the city fees that, you know, we note even by the beginning of the next calendar year. So businesses or residents know what the fees are gonna be ahead of time.
Okay, other comments? Okay.
We'll look to bring it back in the summer then.
Okay, discussion of city administrator ordinance. Any comments on the ordinance?
Yeah, I actually had a chance to sit down and read the entire ordinance from the city of Plano. City of Plano had their ordinance in place before their administrator was hired. In reading their ordinance, it essentially keeps the mayor, the administrator, and the city council working together as a team. When I compare what they have versus ours, there's not much team in ours like theirs and theirs. One thing it talks about, review of the administrator. The city of Plano actually takes the city council's opinion, whether it be through an email to the mayor stating this is how I feel, and it takes the thoughts of what the city council actually has into account. The schooling portion of it, the city council has to approve any costs going towards schooling, as to where in our ordinance, all costs are only approved by mayor. The thing is, ultimately, the 8 of us, 2 per ward, we're literally the pulse. We got our finger on the pulse of what's going on in our ward. We have people calling us, whether it's the ponds at Fairwinds, the water pressure Fairwinds. And I don't think that the people that voted us in want us to take a back seat and just be legislative. I think they want us to be a serious part, a role in this city. And with this ordinance that we have here, I don't see the city council being a huge role in this city.
But you are legislative.
Right now,
No, that's the whole intent of a city council.
I understand, but doing this cuts city council out of almost everything.
That's not true. That's your opinion, that is not true.
Well,
And Jeff's,
Read
or
this.
city administrator's schooling, that's actually his contract that you approve.
When you read this, The city council's probably in here 24 times, talking about how the city works with the administrator, the city council works with the administrator, the city council works with the mayor, the city council works for the city. When you read this, I think it says city council 2 or 3 times at most. So it doesn't take city council into effect a whole lot. And that's my personal opinion, and that's,
So what is different that's in Plano's that's not applicable to ours that would limit the role of the city council?
read it, it's considerable.
I did read it.
It actually makes them a team.
We're not a team? I think you should look back and see what we've accomplished even before you came
What
on
I'm
the
saying
council.
is, when we read this versus this, there's a heck of a lot more team in this than there is in this.
Yeah, but they also have about 6 or 7 standing committees for their council that they participate in, that we do not because we've eliminated them.
They have 7.
But they
I
have,
talked to somebody today.
but they set up their committees so that they can be involved in decision-making at the committee level that we do not because we've eliminated those from our council at the council's vote.
Well, I think taking council out of the city is the wrong move.
It's not taking the council out of the city, not at all. It just defines everybody's roles and responsibilities with the city administrator.
When I read this, it literally defines 2 roles and responsibilities. That's it.
No, it's not.
That's my take on the document.
No, it talks about the city, it talks about the council, the mayor, the administrator, department heads. Talks about all those, about how they work together and where their boundaries are, so we have a better understanding of who's responsible for what and how we operate. That's the whole intent of the ordinance. Right, other comments? Yes.
My one concern that I have is it's almost like we have a job description with these duties and responsibilities, and we have this policy. And I'm kind of afraid of like double jeopardy, where now we have 2 pinch points and some might not be 100% in alignment. So have those 2 been mirrored up against one another to make sure that there isn't one saying they should, or Jeff should do this, or the administrator should do this, the other one says they must do it?
That I don't know, I'd have to review his job description. Jeff, do you know?
No, I mean, there's certainly items that it needs to be firmed up. I mean, the job description is basically the same as it was when I applied for the job. So, I mean, it would make sense to go back through that and refine it, try and find a way to figure out the things that make the most sense.
Yeah, we've hired at least 3 positions since then, the
Yeah,
code
no, I
enforcement,
hear ya.
economic developer, and the financial analyst, so.
I mean, the baseline of this, it makes sense to have it written the way that it is. I think it's good to have the 1-point person that everybody goes to versus basically anybody can go anywhere and create havoc. I mean, it does get bothersome, I'm sure, when we call directly to department heads and ask a question. It should go to Jeff, and then Jeff should go to that department head and follow back towards us. Just because, I mean, the staff probably feels that they need to get an answer back to us within a certain amount of time, and they're busy. Like, that's time consuming, and it takes them away from their tasks at hand. So I like how it's written, where we flow things to Jeff talks to the staff, and it comes back out. You know, so it's just a smoother transition. And I don't think that there's anybody trying to sequester anything or make it so that it can't happen, but it just is, it's just tighter this way.
Okay, other comments?
Yes, I'm not in favor of the ordinance. I also think that the ordinance diminishes the council's roles in different aspects. I believe if we have a good job description, that should be satisfactory, including in the job description, having how we want him reported to, or how we expect for him to be reporting to us. I don't think it needs to be in ordinance form. And I think we go back to the drawing board and revamp and redo that job description to make sure it's where we want it to be. We're always going to have some aldermen that are going to be more hands-on because they are local or available. You know, which is a unique position for some people because they are available. I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit when you were talking about the difference between Plano and Sandwich as far as them having their standing committees. We have the committee of the whole, and a lot of times we are discussing the exact same things that a committee would then. I think we get more accomplished with the committee of the whole as opposed to there being a separate little committee here and a committee there, because when that happens, sometimes, not always, but sometimes those committees think that they are making those decisions for the entire council. Whether or not it's true or not, that's the way it's perceived a lot of times. And I think with other people looking from the outside and even from the inside, they view that or see that the same way. I understand we're all supposed to be working together. I don't think that is always the case. Sometimes it's because of differences of opinions. Sometimes it's just personalities. What we need to get back to is what's best for the city of Sandwich as a whole and all of our constituents. And we need to do that better as a whole.
So what is in the job description of the ordinance that's not acceptable?
I would prefer, I don't want it to be an ordinance form. I don't want it to be an ordinance form because I don't want legal to tell us, well, we do that because that's the way I'm interpreting it. Because I guarantee you there's gonna be things I interpret different than what legal does, than what you do, Mr. Mayor, than what some other aldermen are going to do. And I think that's where it needs to be a discussion. Because I think some alder people may take a back seat because somebody is a little bit more vocal about something. And sometimes other alder people are gonna speak up because they feel strongly about something, or maybe they have a little bit of experience with whatever the topic is. Could be electrical, could be streets, could be lights, could be sidewalks. So we need to use our council members with their experiences, with their knowledge, with their training to our advantage for the entire city.
So I'd recommend that the council go back and look at the committees that were removed and see if they're beneficial to bring them back. Health and benefits insurance, personnel is an issue you keep taking umbrage with, but that's the committee you don't want to bring back and be responsible for, so it falls on the mayor's shoulders.
Well,
those are two perfect ones to look at.
All you would need to do is to have a liaison for any of those things, just like you do every other topic. Sewer, water, streets, same thing. They used to be committees.
You'd have to put that back in the code that way. 'Cause
Nope.
Yep, those liaisons already exist that way.
Well, liaison, you can go ahead and pick out then. You can go ahead and we can do that.
I'm just saying, if you want to take power back anytime, you're welcome to.
No, I don't. The reason that those were removed, for clarification, was because there are people who are ill-informed about, allegations of open meeting act violations and things like that. So when you had those committees, there are supposed to be meetings. And when you only have 3 people part of it, the committee, if there are 2 talking, they're already in violation. Is that correct, Attorney?
Outside of a meeting?
Correct. Well, I just wanted to verify that we are.
About city business.
Correct. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But to me, there would be no difference to the finance committee, right? 3 people run a committee and they ran it really well.
But what I'm saying is that every time 2 of those committee people are talking about bills that they disagree with or bills that they have concerns about, and it's not in the finance meeting, that's a violation.
But they come to City Hall and talk to the city administrator, and they ask questions of our staff, and then they have that dialogue at their meeting. So that's not a violation.
What I'm saying is if they are doing it prior to the meeting, it is a violation, the 2 of them together.
I think they all come and review them separately. because their schedules.
What
And
I'm
they have their
saying-
meeting.
What I'm saying is just any committee. If there's 3 people, there's more opportunity for that violation to occur, whether they were planning it, not planning it, whatever, because there's only 3 people. Committee of the whole, 2 of you can talk all day long, no problem. 3, no, because it's just like the regular council. But when it's a committee of 3 people, call any committee you want, personnel, insurance, whatever. 2 people talking. How do they not?
I'm just saying, that's what Plano has, right? If you like what Plano does, Plano follows a different type of system for their council. They do a lot of their work through committee work.
We don't need the ordinance, my opinion.
Okay, other comments? All right, new business, discussion of a resolution authorizing intervention in a pending property tax assessment appeal for the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board. PTAB, Jeff?
Walgreens has filed a PTAB via, or assessment to lower their property taxes again. And so just appealing that, but I need a resolution to go with it in order for them to accept it. So if the council's okay with it, we'll go ahead and file the resolution, and then I can submit it with everything else. That way they keep me informed. They did this last year. We had worked with the county a little bit, but when we went to the first round this year, they're like, well, you didn't even intervene last year. And it's like, well, no, we thought we had, but I guess we gotta do a resolution as well.
So remember, we're part of an intergovernmental agreement. We represent all the other taxing bodies that have tax through that particular parcel.
I do have a question. So moving forward with this, is it gonna require us to have an appraisal of the property to prove the value of the property?
We have
to
an
fight the
appraisal
tax?
that's just over 2 years old. We believe we can still use that appraisal.
I think it's typically, what, 3 years for the.
Typically 3 years, yes.
They'll look at 3 means to test the property: its value, its saleability, and its the way in which it can be utilized to run it as a business profit. The appraisal can provide all of those, and that is what we would use against their request for reduction of their assessment, and that's like our only way to counter that. So we do the.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so we do the appraisal, and we, most of the time, end up with the school district as their largest recipient of taxes as our partner in the IGA, as well as the other taxing bodies.
So rather than doing a letter, we're going to,
The letter typically works at the county level for the board of review. This is the state level. That's what PTAB's for. So you have to have legal representation. This allows us to file and have someone intervene for us.
right, and that's my concern, because the last sentence there says the city administrator is authorized to designate outside counsel, if necessary, to represent the city in this matter and to perform the acts above described. So are we gonna be paying all of that, or are all of the taxing bodies going to be participating? And who else would be part of that and part of the,
So if the IGA includes this process, which I believe it does, instead of each government body having its own representative, it allows us to designate our representative. So Jeff would be the one that would communicate with our attorney to the board and back to us. He'd also coordinate the appraisal on our behalf and submit that with evidence and work with the other governmental bodies to present the case. So typically the IGA lets one person be like, we'll use the word spokesperson, and then they're the ones that would represent all those entities going forward as the in-between.
so is the school already gonna be part of this appeal?
They did sign the IGA. I haven't talked to them
but
about this, no.
specifically, though.
I have not talked to them
Okay,
about
what
this
about the
yet.
Park District?
Not yet. They're all part of the IGA, but I can talk to them, yes.
Okay, so just because we have an intergovernmental agreement with people doesn't mean that they are willing to participate in the bill for this, correct?
It does that the IGA specifies that we go through in this process. It typically does.
Yes.
Typically, we're in this till the end. There may be a fact that the legal counsel, whoever it might be, might come back and say, we can settle this, and then all the parties would have a discussion whether or not they want to agree to some sort of change in assessment.
So we did this 2 years ago, you're saying?
That was at the county level. Last year, they did appeal it to the state. We talked to the county. The county said that they were gonna do what they could do, and it still never got resolved. So
They
it
provided
kind of got thrown
evidence.
back in our face that, we didn't intervene. Here's the thing, is that unfortunately, every time that one of these companies does one of these, it puts the onus back on the taxpayers, and that's where this is really, really wrong, is that it gets spread out to everybody else in the community. We're really trying hard to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, so it doesn't change our levy or anybody else's levy. It just reallocates the money against all the other taxpayers unless we fight this and say, Walgreens, pay your fair share.
Pay your fair share.
I understand that part. I'm just trying to be clear as far as what it's gonna cost, and if we did do this 2 years ago, because you start talking about an appraisal.
We did,
But if we haven't gone that extra step to do it, and we've gotten intergovernmental agreements with since, I'm still concerned because Walgreens is gonna have representation probably from downtown Chicago.
Yeah, you have to have it. You have to have a lawyer at this level.
Correct. But I'm saying, no offense, we're not gonna have an attorney from Sandwich going down to Springfield or Chicago, wherever the hearing's gonna be, to represent us on this.
Yeah, they only typically hold it in Springfield, so that's the location. So at the Board of Review, the county can't be involved in the process because they're the ones that, for a better term, process it through their own Board of Review. They join us in the appeal process when it goes to the PTAB because now it's a state level process. You don't have to have a lawyer at the Board of Review. You can just simply file a letter and say, we'd like to intervene. You go to a meeting or an appointment and you discuss it. You present your evidence, which is typically the appraisal. They present theirs. This level, it's a whole different game. So it's a whole different group that looks at this. And then the county will join us in this process because it's no longer before their jurisdiction. Your question about whether or not they should split it, I don't have the IGA in front of me, but I believe it's written that if it
I'm looking it
proceeds,
up right
that
now.
everyone's still a party in this unless somebody doesn't participate.
Because they could decide not to, because you gotta ask them about the specific.
Usually you vote on, all the government bodies have an equal vote. They may not have equal taxes, but when the proposal comes back or a settlement agreement, they all review that and determine if they want to proceed or basically stop the process.
So before we would approve the resolution, I don't know, I'm just concerned because I've never been a part of this. I know I have been with the letters to the county at the county level, but going back years and years, and I'm surprised we only have one. Normally we have 2 or 3, sometimes
We've
4.
had
We
some with
do.
the
We
county.
also have one with FNBO, who's, that one's still unresolved from last year. It's just, Walgreens has been,
Old National Bank.
yeah, Old National Bank, but Walgreens has been consistent for probably 15 years, I'm guessing. They've been doing this. They pay about half of the property taxes they paid 15 years ago.
And it's just, again, concerning because I don't want us to jump into something, end up expending even more money, and they're still gonna get what they're gonna get because they have representation out of downtown Chicago.
Absolutely.
Got
That's
big
what these law
pocketbooks.
firms do, Rich, is that, I mean, these companies, they hire a law firm, they come in and they file 80 of these things across the state. And I'm sure from a big business standpoint, hey, instead of having to pay $6 million in taxes over 80 places, we'll pay $2 million. And it's worth paying the attorneys $1 million to do it. And then it gets passed on to the residents. And that's what we've been fighting against, is just trying to stay in the game and continue to put some pressure on them. It's a David and Goliath situation, there's no doubt. And if we don't want to risk spending any money on attorneys, that's fine with me. But I don't feel like we're doing what's in the best interest of the community to just walk away. And that's why it's on your agenda tonight, is for you guys to decide, is this something you want me to spend time on or not?
And the billing's pro rata, right? So whatever your percentage of your total tax. So if the tax bill's 100%, the school district's 80, they pay 80% of the bill is the way the IGA is written. We're like 10 and the county's at 10 something.
Just to be clear, this resolution is to give Jeff the authority to act on our behalf. Once that's secured, then you're gonna reach out to the other taxing bodies to see if they wanna participate in this. And if they don't, we're still gonna fight it to the level that we can to make sure that we're not losing any tax dollars. So if the appraisal and everything still stands true, as we see the assessed evaluations, they're not decreasing right now. So we should stay flat. So I don't know how Walgreens is going to be able to say that, you know, their property's worth $200,000 less than it currently was the year prior.
So the downfall of this is that sometimes we may have to write a check to somebody like Walgreens and pay them back the difference. Because it's been decided that their taxes are now reassessed and lowered. And it depends. Sometimes you can negotiate then what future years look like, a percentage increase, and have a standing agreement. But there are times that you have to write a tax check back to that business because they won.
So I pulled up the IGA. I don't know if it's a version of it. So it says that if the reduction is equal to or greater than 20% of its current EAV or of $200,000 or more is when this applies. The liaison, who I believe is Jeff, shall notify the other taxing bodies, and then within 7 days of them being notified, they have to advise whether or not they'll participate. If a majority of the taxing bodies wish to challenge it, then backed by the complaint.
You typically have a vote, so.
Yeah, so a majority, and then it will be, everyone has to pay their proportionate share of the costs of the appeal.
So I'm gonna pick on Mr. Legg in the back. So if Mr. Legg files his tax appeal, he doesn't meet the threshold, then we don't pursue it at the Board of Review. We let the Board of Review handle this. So this tells us a level in which we would begin to intervene in these taxes, so.
So if there's 7, right, and 4 of them say proceed, the other 3 are on the hook for
Obligated.
their proportionate share of the costs.
What do we stand to gain? How much?
I mean, they're,
What was the reduction request? That's what it comes down to.
Well, I don't remember off the top of my head.
it's
I
more
really
than
don't.
$200,000,
Oh,
I
absolutely,
know that.
yes.
And the thing about this, we approved this intergovernmental agreement in 2022. And the truth of the matter is that it doesn't affect the city very much at all, right? Because if you look at your tax bills, the amount that the city gets is peanuts compared to everyone else. But like Jeff and the mayor had said, it then just automatically increases for the citizens. And so I don't remember exactly how it all came to be, but we decided that someone needed to take the charge. Jeff was willing to do that. And then all the other taxing bodies agreed that they would participate in it and, you know, pay their proportionate costs. So we just have to find out if a majority of them will agree. And it does say that if they don't, then no further action is taken. Because I think that if majority of them don't, I don't know if it's in the city's best interest to appeal on just behalf of the city.
And that was my concern, my
Yeah.
biggest thing.
Yeah.
I didn't want us to have that burden, the attorney's fees, everything else.
So it's just that I think more organized this way is the
And
idea.
remember too, once that assessment's reduced, and sometimes they're significant, they could be $700,000. I don't know the case of this one, but think how long it takes you to get that assessment back up to where it's at. So you have to not only write a letter, you have to appear and give testimony. You have to file the next level, have you represented, and have someone make your case before the state board.
The thing I'm looking at is, so even look at the number $200,000. The city of Sandwich gets 10.8% of the tax bill. So at $200,000, we'd be looking at what, $21,600?
It's of the legal bill that would be on. I don't think you'll have a $200,000 legal bill.
But of that percent of the 200, we would get,
No, this is just a legal bill, is what we'd be paying at this point.
No, he's saying,
The taxes is 10.8%, but when we get to the pro rata, it's whatever the legal
right,
bill is.
but what I'm
for-
saying
for the
is,
appraisal.
of that 200, the city would only be getting $21,000 of that. The city could eat that 21,000 up in legal really fast and start going underwater.
I mean, but that would mean that the total cost of everything
Yeah, the
would
whole
also be
legal bill would have to be
$200,000,
$200,000,
which I don't think anyone would
Yeah. So
allow to happen.
typically, Adam, what happens is you file and you're represented, they have their hearing, before the hearing, the attorneys talk and decide if they can file basically a settlement out of court. If they can, then we resolve it either by an agreement of what the assessment should be or some spreading of the assessment costs over years of reduction. In most cases, they may not even actually have the hearing occur. It just depends on the process and the attorneys on both sides. Then you can also meet and you can decide that your case is going well or not. And sometimes you could just simply settle and get out of it. So there are a couple options in the process to.
Yeah, if I may, first of all, I find it a little hard to believe we would get to the point where the total legal bill would be the worth of the entire amount of the taxes. That's A. B, I'm not a fan of bullies. And C, we are responsible for those taxes, whether they're just coming to the city or not, doesn't matter. They're coming to the
School
home
district.
one way or another because of the school district. So if it's me, I say we have to at least start this fight and see where it goes. At least the first one. Oh, and by the way, D, you let one bully win and they'll all stomp on you. That's just my opinion.
Well, and I think that's what happened last time, is that one of them filed, and then within like a couple days, we got all the other ones too.
So basically, if a majority of the taxing bodies want to move forward, we're gonna move forward. If a majority do not, then it's be a moot point.
Yep.
You may still vote several times when like a proposal comes back. Do we accept it? Do we not? Do we just get out of this and move on?
I guess, Jeff, I don't know if you recall, are the township, forest preserve, and the drainage district on this?
The township is, the other two were not.
Some of them are very
Then-
significant
okay.
on the taxes.
So then we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We
Is it
probably
just-
need to get another meeting with everybody and sit down and go
Okay.
through it.
Looks like there's 6, I think.
But they would all get the same briefing, right? Whatever the settlement is, all of them find out what their proposal is from the attorney.
Well, no, I mean,
Well, Jeff would, but then a lot of
Yeah,
times
he'd
you'll
share it
call
with.
a Zoom nowadays or Teams and say, here's the numbers we're going through, because they have to vote anyway, so. But to have like 5 different bodies, have someone representing them that's why we don't do it.
and that's part of the idea that so I think Jeff is the liaison. And so instead of having the attorney have to talk to 6 or 7 different people, they talk to Jeff, and then Jeff does all the talking. So then the attorney doesn't have 7 different people, contacting them and running up the bill without anyone having any idea what.
They're gonna bet that Sandwich, Illinois doesn't show up at PTAB. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And they automatically win, so. Okay, so that's there for your consideration. It's the first time we've gotten that point since 2022, but again, we put this together to represent the taxing bodies in our community, so. Okay, other questions on the PTAB? All right, last item we have, before we move on to the final points and audience comments, would be a resolution to allow for the purchase of out-of-state IMRF service credit. We did that before with Mr. Steffens with his military service. And so there's an IMRF question for you, whether or not you want to grant out-of-state credit. Questions?
How would we know what it's gonna cost? Is there an example? Is there somebody that wants to do something currently?
Definitely.
There is, yes. I worked 2.5 years out of state, and I'm asking if the council would consider allowing me to purchase that out-of-state time.
Do we have any of the information, documentation as far as what it would be? I've not seen anything.
At this point, it's just to see if you're even interested. But it's, I don't have the numbers is what
Yeah,
it comes down to. I'm
this-
not the,
Yeah, this is, again, just committee of the whole. It's to, put the request before you, I believe. I had to find out what system he was in, because the way you would do it is if they're part of the reciprocal act, I believe that they are. And so I think the idea was see if that's something that you're even willing to consider before we spend any time trying to get into it too far.
But just like the military part, IMRF requires us to take a position on it.
Well, for me, again, it would depend how much it's gonna cost. If it's gonna cost us way, no offense, but if it only benefits him and does not benefit us as a city, and we're spending an astronomical amount of money for it, I would think not.
I don't believe it will be that great. Again, it's just 2 years, So what I've been looking at does not show that it will be, but I can get,
I believe we've looked into this before in another case, and the amount that the person pays is a considerable amount more, but I'm with Rich, I would
yeah,
like to know an idea, a range.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the military, once we passed it, then it was applicable to anyone from there on out that filed under the military credit.
Yeah.
And it would probably also make a difference too, whether or not it's a compounding thing or something. If they
Right.
have to pay a compounding amount.
Right.
And it was something from 20 years ago, because that could be 20 years of compounding.
Yeah, I think the compounding that we found out was mostly on the employee side, but there was a cost to the employer.
yeah.
so.
I mean, the amount generally that I have seen is very great for,
Right.
you know, participant and not as, but I can, we can have more of a defined range.
Our authorized agent, which is the clerk, could inquire. That's the probably proper person, so.
Yeah,
you'd have
that
to
is the
ask
other
them.
thing, is that technically Denise is like the only one authorized to actually speak to
Yeah,
IMR.
we couldn't get anybody to speak to us last time under the military ones.
I'm not opposed to getting some information, because I'd have to have more, I'd have to have numbers to make a decision.
Okay, other comments? Okay. All right, announcements, I don't think we have any. Audience comments, do we have a? Just a reminder everyone that's gonna give an audience comment, it's 5 minutes for limitation. You can only address the mayor. All right, Sandy Kohler. All right, you can begin.
Okay. Hello. I will keep it short and sweet. I've looked at a lot of the budget and weekly financial stuff for the last 2+ years. I've raised heck about a lot of them to no avail, because they pass one way or another, because we don't have a whole lot of say out here. One thing I am going to take and bring out, we have a pretty good crowd at this point. We pay, the new budget that is being requested for the attorney is $100,000 a year. I have called 18 municipal towns larger than us within 50 miles, give or take, small ones, big ones. Out of those, 2 have an attorney come in on their weekly meetings when and if legal is needed. Every time we have had legal here and they have been asked a legal question, I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll have to get back to you on that. Well, I guess she could read the minutes and watch the YouTube video and get back to us later. She doesn't have to be here to tell us she'll get back to us. Again, on this financial for tonight, it's $5,000. That's ridiculous. It's $400 to $800 every time they walk through that door. It has to be stopped. $50,000 to go a long way toward sidewalks or beautification of Sandwich or signage or bringing something to our town. It's just ridiculous that they don't look at these things better. We don't need an attorney 7 days a week. We need more people to, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I asked a question today pertaining to my election and my swearing in on May 5th. And I asked it of multiple people. First words out of their mouth was, I'll have to ask the attorney. Why we got to ask the attorney? Has it never been done before? Does nobody on this council or the mayor know the answer to this question that I asked? And I'm not going to pose it here because I got the answer myself. And it didn't cost me $150. You got to start doing things on your own. You have a brain. You were hired into these positions or elected into these positions because people thought you were going to represent the citizens of Sandwich. We have good people in this town. We're losing good people off this council. It's got to stop. Question everything. It's your tax dollars just as much as theirs. Everybody says I get angry. Yeah, I get angry when I get dismissed. I'm not going to be dismissed anymore. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Steve Pestatelli.
Good evening. My name's Steve Pescatelli. I am a resident of Sandwich, but I'm here on behalf of the DNR tonight. I want to inform everybody, the council and the public, that there was a fish kill on Harvey Creek on April 12th. And I just want to let everybody know there's no specific issue that the council has to deal with, but you should know that and the public should know, so maybe we can prevent it from happening again. Anyway, it happened on Saturday, April 12th. And maybe you heard about it because we involved the superintendent of the wastewater treatment plant, Brad Eads. He was excellent, actually. He came from a pickleball tournament and came out with us and walked around. And we determined that it wasn't, you'll be happy to know, the source wasn't the wastewater treatment plant because they were operating very well. And we tested the dissolved oxygen, which is often the cause of a fish kill. You know, you get some organics in the stream and it takes up the oxygen. The fish were not gulping at the surface. They were like twisting around like this, which means it was some kind of toxicant, so, you know, affecting their nervous system, like a pesticide, herbicide. We don't really know. We tried to get EPA out, but they didn't make it to take a water sample. So we can't say for sure, but we think it came out of one of the city storm drain up by Dayton Avenue where Harvey Creek originates. So it killed quite a few fish, and we actually have a protocol to estimate how many fish have died, and we set up sampling stations and extrapolate by the distance of the creek. So we're still kind of figuring that out, but probably lost hundreds of fish. Harvey Creek is really a unique stream system. I've sampled hundreds of creeks in my 30 years at DNR, and it's just really different. It originates from Davis Lake, from a pump. You know, there's a drainage district, of course, that you mentioned earlier, and runs kind of in a ditch, man-made ditch to Sandy Bluff, and then there's a drop. I'd like to know what it looked like before we started messing with it. But there's a drop at the culvert of about 3 or 4 feet. And from that point, it's a really nice stream. It meanders, great habitat, and there's actually an endangered species that lives in that creek because of the cool water that comes out of the ground. It's called mottled sculpin. So anyway, we investigated, my colleague Tristan Widlow, we're both biologists with a DNR. So that's kind of the bottom line. It seems like somebody poured some toxicant down the storm drain, and it came out right there at Dayton and killed fish all the way down to Little Rock Creek. Fortunately, we walked down there and there was no dead fish in Little Rock Creek. It was probably diluted by the large volume of Little Rock, because Harvey's a pretty small creek. It's only 2 miles long. So anyway, we just want to let you know. Maybe some of you knew something about it, or we can, you know, make sure the public knows when you pour something down the drain, it ends up in the creek, you know, especially herbicides or pesticides or oil or whatever. So anyway, thank you for listening.
Maybe that's a topic for our next newsletter or combination of our water billing.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Nancy Sangaroth? Hi, go ahead.
My name's Nancy Songeroff. I'm a lifelong resident of Sandwich. I'm a family nurse practitioner by trade. I also am a small business owner within the town, and I'm a resident of Fairwind. You know, I know I can't debate my huge tax bill, but I'm here, my complaint, I have a couple tonight. My first one that I'm concerned about is the school parking along Prairie View and the north side of Pleasant Avenue. So school parking and safety, it's a crucial part of the safely navigating our children's journey to and from the school daily. There's an increasing amount of distracted and aggressive drivers, hence the police campaign, that goes around us every day. So there's this great influx of traffic because of the development of the subdivision that's both entering and exiting Fairwind, and add to that, the drop-off children on a daily basis. Every day after school, there are multiple vehicles parking along the north side of Pleasant Avenue that they're opening their doors into the traffic carelessly. I've had a kid pop out of a minivan and come right in front of me in the lane of traffic a couple years ago. The cars are blocking the roadway. They're making U-turns, just whipping around, not looking where they're pulling out. And they're not, doing anything cautiously. There was an incident just a few weeks ago where somebody actually from the subdivision dropped their kid off on the south side of Pleasant and had the kid cross the 2 lanes of traffic to go across and almost got hit. And then Prairie View has a very smooth process in place for as far as picking up and dropping off their kids, with safety being first and foremost. Today I spoke with Mr. Ryan, who is the principal over at Prairie View, and he states that they prefer parents pick those kids up from that north door. There's a very good system that's worked out between Prairie View and the Park District as far as utilizing the, is it Milestone, whatever, the park there. So it's very quick in and out. The kids are taught tuck and roll when you go. So they get, dropped off, very efficiently. He also said that that's why they've got the placard cards, because they want to make sure that the right kid's going to the right person and there's not a potential abduction. He says if they do not have placard cards, they ask for IDs from whoever's picking up the kids. When that's happening over on Pleasant, there's nobody monitoring those kids, and we shouldn't use additional services or somebody to have to go over there and watch, because parents can't come over and get in line like anybody else. I get it. I know what it was like when you had to get the kids out and you're running late. But if you can avert a tragedy, plus with the construction that's going to be going on with Doomer, they're going to have 50 additional fourth graders over there next year. And that's not counting what's influxing into the district because of growth as well. So that being said, that's going to further increase the traffic flow there. So I think that you guys should seriously consider I know on the south side of Pleasant you have a no parking during school hours. I think that you should do the same on the north side, just to prevent, a potential tragedy from occurring. If it's not somebody snatching your kid, it's somebody getting hit by your, hit or something. So, that's what I'm asking. I went to the HOA about it. Everybody's like, go to city about it. Fine. So I'm here tonight to hopefully make a difference. And then again, water pressure in Fairwind. I'm on Autumn Ridge. It's horrible. It's horrible. And what do I get for my $10,000 tax bill? A $350 water bill. So maybe we should charge by PSI, and I might do a little better. But other than that, that's my concern. Thank you.
Okay, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Is that on west and east on Pleasant, or just?
Like once you cross over Castle.
It's on the east side?
It's on the north, like the north side of.
So they're going to the crossing guard, going across?
Yeah, they're not using the crossing guard. They cross, like if you're heading west on Pleasant, it'd be on the right side that they're pulling over. And I welcome you, go there after school one day. There's 10, 15 of them lined up.
And is that AM and PM?
Correct. AM, I'm not there that much, but I know it varies, because they're more drop. But again, there's a great system in place where their kids are monitored and they're safe, whereas they don't have to walk across the grass and where nobody is watching.
Okay, we'll ask the chief to monitor that with his patrolman.
Yeah, I know that they have, because I've made complaints in the past, and the one officer did come out, and he's like, yeah, I agree, that lady, there's this one lady that used to park on a diagonal, even though it's parallel, and she, just so she could shoot out, but he said there's 9 feet of,
9 feet from the center
egress.
line, yep.
Yeah.
So he can either ticket them, and he can also report back our recommendations to council. So we could look at additional signage and restrict that during hours of usage, so.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. Rick McCombs?
Hi, everybody. Rick McCombs. I'm 608 East Pleasant Avenue. I'm here tonight to discuss the late fee that I received on my water bill over a 3-month period. Last fall, we had a $700 water bill because we were trying to oversee the backyard. If anyone recalls, it was really dry last fall, so we sort of had to water to, we spent money on aerating and seeding, so we're like, we got to bite the bullet. Mother Nature wasn't cooperating. Fast forward, I get my bill. I was two weeks late. I'm not going to dispute that. The shocking part is what I didn't realize. The city passed a 20% late fee, so my late fee was $140, which I thought that was a little more than excessive. I wrote, I had to, another thing, I had to call down to Denise, and I spoke with her. On the bill, it says previous balance. It does not indicate that it's a late fee, which is a little misleading. I think that's something that should be a little more open and forthright as to what it is. It wasn't a balance, it was a late fee. I don't know if there's any recourse to get that lowered. I spoke with Todd, I spoke with Alderman Robinson. And I just don't know if there's a cap that can be put on it, if there's any recourse. I mean, if we can play let's make a deal, I mean, I'll start at $50 if we want to haggle, but that's my point. I mean, if anybody can maybe follow up and reach out to me and let me know if there is any recourse to getting a more reasonable late fee. I'm happy to pay a late fee, but $140 seems a little bit much. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, can you look and see if the language can be changed in our computer system? Or Denise, I'm sure. Okay, Mike Mendoza. I had to read your last name twice because I didn't write it very well. Go ahead, Mike.
So I just want to go on record and addendum to Nancy's concern in the front. This isn't the first dance and rodeo we've had about this. I've been here many times bringing it up before. And I do want to remind the city and the city council, back in 2005 through 2008, there was an island there that was torn out for the exact purposes of this stuff causing the havoc and dangers. And we basically just reintroduced it on each side, right? So I brought the concerns, just as Nancy, I see it on both sides in the morning and in the evening. When I used to commute to work in Naperville, saw it every day. And it's extremely dangerous. This is nothing about our Fairwind subdivision coming and going. This is about a kid getting hit. And we're putting it on record because the liability is going to come back to the city because all of us have brought it to the attention that it's a problem, right? So the simple fact, I know it's a 10-minute act. We've heard police officers say it before. It's 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon. What do you guys care? It'd be done now. That's a direct quote, right? Thing is, exactly. It's 10 minutes for a patrol officer to kind of clear it out, make it a habit, ticket some drivers and pick up until they get conditioned to get out of there. Because for me, a professional in the industry of clinical research, the one thing we see are the parents' influence on kids. So what they're actually teaching their kids is that they can work around the rules, they can work around the rails that the city and the school have been trying to put in place. So for that, I would suggest a little bit more effort into making sure that that clears out and kids' safety is maintained. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else wish to make a public comment? Rich, you had a question that you wanted to go into closed
Yes.
session about under 2C2 personnel.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to save it for the regular meeting?
He has to go under committee of the whole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if we go back there, we'll just cover all of them? Or just this one? Jeff, is there action?
No,
on
I
the-
don't think we should do that, people.
Mine will be less than 10 minutes, so.
Famous last words.
As I said before, it depends who else wants to comment.
All right, then once you make that motion.
Make motion?
Motion to go into closed session under 2C2. It is 2C2, right? 2C1.
I thought it was 2C1.
2C1 personnel. Is that right there? 2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, dismissal of specific employees of a public body. Is that what you want to go under?
Yep.
Okay, is there a second to?
Second.
Alderman Littlebrandt? All right, roll call.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderman Fritsch.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Kreinbrink.
Aye.
Alderman Lobrandt.
Aye.
Alderman Robinson.
Aye.
Alderman White Cotton.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go back and close session.